Hello everyone. In this dashboard, we are trying to figure out the factors that affect the success of a movie. The success is either defined as a box office profit or accolades. Both have been standardized between 0 to 1 for this project. And the upper slider basically determines the weightage given to each metric of the success. So on the left hand side, this would represent all the profit and no accolades. On the right, it will represent all the accolades and no profit. Basically, this slider represents the alpha times the weight given to each metric. The data set we have used have been scraped from the MDB. The first map is the chloroplet map, where the success has been averaged for each country. This plot supports interaction as annotation, and you can click on any country as well, and double clicking will unselect the selection. This all the plots have been linked to one another through this click and unclick brushing. The second plot is a budget map. This is our innovation that has been inspired from the New York Times. This is a mix between scatter plot matrix and density plot. And this basically represents the different categories of the budget. The movies have been separated into. Each dot represents a movie. The size of this dot represents the accolades of the filmmaking crew, like the wins or Oscar nominations of the directors, actors, actresses, writers. On the right, you will see the basically these accolades, the size, the radius of the number corresponding to the radius of the circles. Green represents greater profit greater than zero. Less than zero, red basically represents loss. And white represents the data wasn't available. The journal basically represents is a force directed curve where the size indicates the success, and the links, the width and the opacity dictates the co-occurrence. That means two genres that appear frequently together. In this, action and adventure seems to be together a lot. Drama, comedy, and romance appears together a lot. So the strong links are the ones that is generally have a stronger opacity and width. The timeline have been represented by a stacked pie chart where the color indicates different decades. From past to present, inner one is 1970s, yellow is 1980s. This is the legend corresponding to it. This is also interactable. You can click on one of them and select and unselect the decade. The gender is a simple pie chart where the area represents the percentage of the movies. The color represents its influence on the success. And the last rating is simple line curve, but since the duration of the movie fluctuates a lot, we have implemented a smoothing function, which basically smooths the ratings across the duration. And this is also interactable. So I will let my project partner Priyanka explain the intricacies of this data set.
So if we measure the success of the movies primarily through the accolades, then if we observe across all the budget ranges in this gender map, um, then we can see that across all the ranges, with increasing number of female leads, the critical acclaim of the movies goes up. And if a movie wants to win higher critical acclaim, then it's recommended to hire cast and crew who have Oscar nominations and wins, as can be seen from the size of these dots. And now, if we observe for if we give profit the highest weight for success, then we can see that very high budget movies have a lower risk of making a loss. And also, to make the highest profit, it's not required to hire cast and crew with high number of Oscar nominations and wins. So for individual, so if we now look for individual budget ranges, for lower range, we can't really hire cast and crew with a lot of Oscar nominations and wins. And the genres which dominate in this case are mostly biography, drama, mystery, and romance. And these movies are mostly released in the months of March and October. And the most successful movies are rated in this range with a average runtime of around 2 hours. Now for low mid range, the pattern is pretty similar to low budget movies, but now the relative number of Oscar winning cast and crew has gone up. For the mid budget range, they have the highest number of Oscar nominated and winning cast and crews, and the movies are mostly released in the months of May, June, and December. Here, PG-13 and R-rated movies are the most successful with an average runtime of around 2 to 2.5 hours. If we look for high budget range, then the pattern is pretty similar to a mid range, and the movies are mostly released in the month of June. And for very high budget ranges, the genres which dominate are fantasy, sci-fi, adventure, and biography. And here, the movies are released mostly in the months of May, June, November, and December. And PG-13 movies dominate in this space. Now, if you observe the timeline plot for 1970s, the number of movies with two female leads were relatively lower, and the average duration of the movies was around 110 minutes. And sci-fi and action genres weren't really prevalent in the 1970s. Now, for 1990s, the two female lead movies have gone up. We can see that history is the genre which dominates in this case. It's the most successful, and the average runtime of the movies is around 130 minutes. And one example of this is Schindler's List, which was a very successful movie. And if you now look for 2010, then we can see that the two female lead movies have relatively gone up. And the genres which dominate in this space are sci-fi, fantasy, action, and adventure. And the average runtime of the movies has now gone up to around 2.5 hours. And PG-13 movies dominate in this range mostly. An example of this are the MCU Marvel movies.
So the last observation that we are going to do is on the ratings, and we can see that for any decade, PG-13 and R-rated have the most number of movies, and they are the most successful ones. In the current decade, is as mentioned, there are 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 30 minutes movies, or 150 minutes movies are like the most successful ones. And the other genres like non-rated R and non-rated G and PG are not much prevalent, so we are not going to talk about them a lot. And for the world map, one key observation is New Zealand, which has the highest success in terms of accolades as well as the profit, partially owing to the because of the movies like Avatar, which was based in New Zealand, Hobbit, Lord of the Rings. So that's why New Zealand has a high significance. But in general, New Zealand and China seems to have significant better chances of making a movie successful. So the major takeaways are for profit, the movie should be based in China or New Zealand, which should have a very high budget or high budgets. The red line indicates the average success of the movie. Animation, for if I want to make money, I want to have animation, adventure, fantasy, and sci-fi as the genre. The release month should be around November, December, the winter month, and June, May, and July, these 3 months. And it should have a PG-13 rating, which around with a 150 duration, and ideally should not have many female leads as they are like relatively speaking make the least amount of profit. For if I want to win accolades and I care about the prizes, I should prefer higher female leads with esteemed crew. As you can see, the red dot, the bigger dots are much more prevalent than smaller dots. And the genres I should be targeting should be biography and history. The ratings that are very much available, like are most successful, are R-rated and PG-13, which again have a duration of around 2.5 hours, 150 minutes. And in the recent decade, the PG-13 movies have gone relatively much higher, are making much more profit. And one more crucial observation is if I just want to make money, the hiring high accolades actor and director or filmmaking crew is not relevant. So unknown actors and directors can give you hits. Example is Marvel Cinematic Universe. And for the low budget movie, the ideal time of release is when they are not competing with the higher budget movies, which happens to be like October and April, March. March has a significant jump here. So based on this, we validated our findings on some of the recent movies. The data set only has movies till 2020. So if we talk about movies that were released in 2021 and 22, so mid-budget movies which have critically famous crew, which got lots of awards or which is like have a lot of critical praise, is The Last Duel, and it's a mid-budget movie. Then in the current decade, since the current decade is of superheroes, all the adventure, sci-fi, action movies are making tons of money. An example would be Batman. But we have mentioned before, for winning Oscars and accolades, history and biography are the main genres. So an example would be King Richard, which won the best actor for the Will Smith movie. It's a biography on Serena Williams' coach or father. Then we have very high budget movies are generally released in, let's talk about only very high budget. So they are generally released in November, December, May, June, July. These are the most successful ones. So Spider-Man No Way Home was released in December. Doctor Strange has been released in May. Next to next month, July would be Thor. So, and then you have low budget movies that again has been mentioned for making most amount of money. March is their ideal time. Good example will be Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was released in the month of March. And since, as we have mentioned, the current decade is of PG-13 movies. So if you are making a high budget movies, you want everyone to watch that movies. And a good example is Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which was supposed to be an R-rated but was made PG-13. Based on all these observations, now we can make an prediction for future movies. So upcoming movie of Avatar will be released in December, and it has a sci-fi and fantasy genre. It is based in New Zealand as well because it was shot there. It has a very high budget and it's have around 3 hours runtime. So this should make lot of accolades and profit. Then you have Marvel MCU movie Marvels, which has all three female leads. So based on this observation, we can say there's a very low chance that it is going to make a lot of money. And then you have Oppenheimer, which is again history, which is a historical movie and biographical movie, which has high budget and is supposed to be released in the month of July and June somewhere. So that accordingly should win a lot of awards and most likely an Oscar. So this is our prediction, and that's our dashboard. Thank you.